Welcome, and thank you for joining us on episode 4 of the Eagle Experience. On today's show, I'm here with Molly Nigro, a former Chestatee Academy student from very early on. Let's get straight into it. Who are you, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me. So I am Molly Nigro. My maiden name was Moore. So like you said, I was a Chestatee Academy student. I was actually a 6th grader the year that the school opened. I am part of the class of '06 from Chestatee High School. So we were the first class to completely go through the middle and the high school, all years. And I live in Gainesville. I've lived here my whole life. I live with my husband and I have 2 kids who are both at Sardis. I currently work for the Georgia Department of Education as a special education support specialist. I'm in the Office of School and District Improvement. And I'm so excited to be back here and share my experiences about Chestatee.
Sounds great. Now, tell us a little bit more in depth about your connections to Chestatee now as a student, of course, and then you moved on to be a student teacher, and how that kind of worked you into education, and of course, a future Chestatee parent.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever I was here, just amazing experiences. And then after I graduated in 2006, I went to North Georgia and up in Dahlonega. And whenever I got my first student teaching placement and I saw Chestatee come across it, I was ecstatic. I was like, I get to go home. And so I was actually paired with Carol Vaughn, who unfortunately has passed away in the past couple of years. And we were teaching 6th grade social studies. And it was such a strange experience. It was great because I did feel at home, but I would walk down the halls and get some sideways glances of, what are you doing? Why are you back? But that was actually one of the first years that SOAR was a thing. So we actually, and to see that experience unfold was really cool to get to see, and knowing that my kids were going to be here as well is really neat. Carol and I actually did books to movies. So we would read a book with our group, and then we would watch the movie and compare how the two did they miss things in the movie?
Right.
Was the book better? Was the movie better? So it was a really neat experience.
Now, as you've already mentioned, you were here in 1999 as a 6th grader. So how do you think Chestatee was in its very early years? Did it seem really put together, or were things a little scattered?
So, if things were scattered or unorganized, we never noticed it as students. I'll say I remember little bits and pieces of community talk before the school opened. I know there was some concerns about, it may not be done in time. Districting got a little chaotic. I know that Lead-In Road was a big point of contention with who was going to get those kids. Were they going to go to North Hall? Were they going to come to Chestatee? And so I vaguely remember some of that, but the most thing that I remember is the school was beautiful. It was brand new. For technology and things, we had the top of the line of everything. And just the cool thing about it was, it's always nerve-wracking as 6th graders to come into a building because you're the new man on campus. But the reality was we were all new. The teachers were brand new. We were brand new. So we were all in the same boat. So I think it was a little less, I actually taught middle school. So I would get those 6th graders with nerves, but I think it was a little less nerve-wracking because no one knew what we were getting into. So it was a neat experience.
Now, as you said, really everybody and everything was new. So tell me, how was it like building a school culture and becoming what we are today?
So I will say it really and truly immediately felt like family. Teachers were so invested in our lives. I was looking through yearbooks kind of in preparation for this just to look back, and I was looking through the pages of my yearbook that were signed, and I looked through people's pictures, and to see there were very few faces that I didn't have a memory with. which was just cool. I was looking at the pictures of our FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I believe we started in the band room, but we started in a small space, and then they quickly realized that we had to move to the gym. And I remember by 8th grade, we would have the gym so packed on Wednesday mornings that we basically had to have the whole faculty there to watch majority of the student body that was in FCA on Wednesday mornings. And just teachers poured into our lives, and we were all just such a tight-knit community. And it still shows today. It's funny, my husband is not from Gainesville, and so when our kids are at sporting events and, I'm talking to everyone, and he's like, should I know that person? And I'm like, no, we went to school together. So, but it is a way of life almost, and I mean, Chestatee was part of our identity, and we had to make a name for ourselves. Our sports teams were not great and until our 8th grade year, which we actually won some games and had some, but we were just such a tight-knit community, and we stuck together and really created a family.
Now, as you've already mentioned, looking at that yearbook, you immediately think of some memories, some experiences. So I'll ask you, what are some of the most memorable experiences you've had at Chestatee?
I really, and this is not really, I think all the things that we did were amazing. FCA was one of probably my biggest things, just that time of fellowship and having those things at school. I was sharing with someone about Miss Richardson. She's Miss Hudgens now. I remember dissecting a frog in 7th grade science, and I still believe I'm scarred from that because it's disgusting. But I will say, so I was in 8th grade when September 11th happened. Probably the one event that I didn't realize would change my life. But I vividly, and it's funny because I actually posed this question out on Facebook to a couple of my friends yesterday of, am I missing memories? Because, what are we missing here? Are there things that I should share? And some people had some funny comments, but the one thing that everyone said was, we were there when the planes hit the towers, and how that drastically changed our lives. I vividly remember sitting in health class and Jason Chesser running in and saying, turn the TV on, planes hit the World Trade Center. And then I remember being in homeroom as the towers fell. And actually my teacher at the time, her daughter worked in one of the World Trade Towers. And so, I think that memory stands out the most. And my husband is actually active military. So to know that one event that happened in 8th grade in the school has changed my life forever was huge for me. But, just a lot of laughs here, a lot of, we all rallied together. I do remember in 8th grade, we finally beat North Hall in football, which was like the pinnacle. And then actually our senior year of high school, we beat North Hall again at North Hall in pouring rain. So, just those memories with the people that we were just a family.
Now, what inspired you to go back into education? Did you have any influences from teachers you had at Chestatee that caused you to make the decision?
Yeah, so I knew very early on that I wanted to be a teacher. My kindergarten teacher would tell you I knew in kindergarten that I was going to be a teacher. However, I do believe that the teachers here really swayed me towards wanting to teach middle school. I remember doing my first student teaching, and I was actually in an elementary school, and I walked in and I walked straight to my advisor's office at North Georgia and said, get me out. I am not made for elementary education. And I think it was knowing how much of an impact the teachers in middle school had on me, pouring into my life and really just being there for me. Middle school can be the hardest years of your life, but having teachers that I knew loved me and cared about me and truly cared about my well-being. I think one of the things that stand out to me, so Dawn Richardson, who's at the high school now, she wanted to share with us her love of kayaking. So we started a kayak club. Never in my life had I been in a kayak before, but she wanted to teach us to love kayaking, and still to this day. Actually, a couple of years ago, I went kayaking with her on Lake Lanier again, just because that's what she loves to do. And so whenever I really got into teaching and I went back to teach middle school, I wanted to be that teacher. I wanted to be the one that was there for my students during some of the most awkward, strange years of your life, that you go through a lot of changes really quickly. And, you get 3 years with middle schoolers, but they grow up so much in those 3 years. And so I really think that was the big thing for me, is knowing what an impact my middle school teachers had on me and wanting to give that back.
Now, as you mentioned, you actively work at the Department of Education. How do you think education has changed since you were here at Chestatee?
So it is so different now. I think COVID really turned the world of education upside down. It caused us to pump the brakes a little bit in some aspects. My cousin is a junior at the high school, and I look at, she's earning college credits as a junior in high school, and things are just sped up a lot, right? Technology has taken such a stronghold. I know I was laughing about earlier that, I didn't even have a cell phone until my sophomore year of high school, and then it had no internet. Called after 9 p.m., free nights and weekends. Did not have an iPhone until my sophomore year of college. But now I look at the technology that's around. When I was here, we actually had computer lab, and we would take typing classes. Amy Chosewood taught computer lab, and we had actual typing classes where we learned how to type, which that's a skill that I can never give up. I'm thankful for that every day. So I really think with education, and I've even seen a drastic change from when I was teaching to post-COVID education now. We're having to learn to slow down and reteach. And I think we had almost sped up so much that now we're having to, slow down and go back to the basics. And, I get excited whenever I see that kids are actually using real books. My son came home today from school with a stack of books from the library, and, to see that love of actually touching a book and not being on a tablet or a device is, it's interesting how the pendulum's swinging.
How did Chestatee help prepare you for your current position and life in general?
I think really and truly, being in a place where teachers really loved their students. They loved their job. There was you were not just a number. You were a name and a face, and you had a story. And still to this day, I can see teachers that I had or administrators, and they remember you and they remember things about you. They know your family. They showed up to games. They showed up to our sporting events. And so I really think it prepared me. I was given a lot of leadership opportunities. I was on student council every year here. 8th grade, we were able to go and do, we actually had like a women's ensemble for a chorus, just a lot of leadership opportunities that I think allowed us to shine where we wanted to shine. So we were really able to have a lot of freedom. And, that's what I see with my own kids in Hall County is they're still given a lot of freedom to pursue what they are interested in and what their passions are. And that's really, treasured and valued. And it's not just, okay, come in, eat, get, reading, writing, math. It's not just that. You actually get an experience.
Now, were you involved in any sports or clubs? You've already mentioned kayaking, but tell us about it.
So I did the kayak club. So we actually would go up to the Lanier Canoe and Kayak Club, and we would go kayaking and canoeing, and we actually did some competitions. That was fun. And I also was in chorus, and I was on student council. I cheered. I'm sure I was involved in a million other things. Those are just the ones that stand out to me.
Now tell us, is there something that really wasn't funny back then, but there's a story and it's really funny now?
Okay, so when I was teaching, I had a student that had a little bit of a stutter, and he embraced his stutter, and he knew that when he got worked up that he started stuttering a little bit more. And I remember, it had just been a particularly challenging day in my classroom, and he leaned in and he asked me a question, and I had already answered it at least 5 times at this point in time. And I will never forget, I looked at him and I went, "Did I stutter?" And whenever I said it, I immediately caught myself. And I remember my best friend and I co-taught together, and I looked at her, and it was just a moment of sheer panic on my face of, okay, this is how I lose my job because I just said this out loud. And the kid bust out laughing, and he was like, "Bet you didn't think that one through." And so then at that point, the entire class erupted in laughter, and we were just completely off at that point. But it was one of those moments of just sheer panic, and thankfully, and to this day, anytime I'm about to say something like that, I really think about what I'm about to say before I just blurt it out. So that was not my finest teaching moment, but looking back on it, it's absolutely hilarious now.
Now, as we featured on our previous episode, episode 3 with Heather Chandler, which is, if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. It's a great episode, a lot of fun filming it. We are going to do a little rapid fire section here. We called it Talent Talk, where we ask a series of very quick questions with quick responses to get a lot of action and fun out of it. So this is Talent Talk. Now, tell us, did you get a lot of trouble as a student?
No, I was actually a very good student. High school, I might beg to differ, but I wasn't really in trouble ever. I just, I like to chew gum and bring my cell phone when I wasn't supposed to, but never any major trouble. I was a pretty good kid.
What's the weirdest trend your generation had back then?
These milky gel pens. They had a chokehold on us. They were these weird milky gel. They came out very odd colors, but we would write notes in them, and we would fold notes all sorts of cool ways and pass them along to each other. But I actually found a couple of those in my box yesterday with my pictures. So, yeah.
Was there a teacher you acted normal around, but you were secretly very scared of them?
Jason Chesser and Lynn Clemens, although Miss Clemens wasn't nearly as scary, but Coach Chesser terrified me.
What was your dream job as a kid?
Being a teacher.
That's good. I mean, you stuck with your passion. What was your favorite field trip you ever went on?
So we went to the Renaissance Fair in 8th grade, and I just remember it was such a neat experience, but it was really cool.
What's the first memory that pops into your head when you think of middle school?
Oh, I don't really know that there's one in particular. I would say probably September 11th stands out the most just because it was the most impactful.
If you could do a reunion of middle school students from that year, what would your role be in this event? Would you be an organizer, the storyteller, the DJ?
I would probably be the storyteller. My classmates would argue I'm not organized in any way, shape, or form, so that would definitely not be my role. I could probably name a couple that it would be, but I'd probably be the storyteller.
Are there any pranks or mischievous stories from your time here?
So, no, not really pranks necessarily. I mean, we did have some funny times that, I do remember sitting in sixth grade, and that was the first time that Lanier and Sardis students had come together. And so we did have a couple of good laughs at the expense of some of our friends at Lanier, just, some good old-fashioned hate, if you will. But nothing in particular that stands out prank-wise.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share and subscribe. So until next time, I'm Zach Roach, and this is Molly Nigro, and thanks for joining us for another Eagle Experience.